2020 is upon us. We have so much to look forward to. The Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Euro 2020, the final at Wembley. Together, folks, let's make 2020 the start of something special.
The year of 2020 will retain a bitter footnote in minds the world over for many years to come. Unprecedented economic turmoil, sacrifices of individual liberties, and a medical and scientific call to arms unknown from recent memory were but a few of the devastating impacts caused by COVID-19, a strain of the coronavirus that spread across the globe like wildfire. Whilst the larger impacts were unprecedented, the pandemic's effects on populations across the world is one that will linger in our collective memories. As governments sought to contain the spread, new infrastructure were introduced to minimise the chance of the virus overwhelming the population. An unsurprising measure was a ban on mass gatherings and frequenting public spaces. Unsurprising, we say, because this seems like a minor liberty to sacrifice temporarily. Society won't grind to a halt in lieu of a game of football, a day at the beach, or a night on the town. Yet the implications of this were far-reaching. As populations were on lockdown, there was a surge in expectation for new media, and a realisation of just how frequently said expectation flares up among us. Be it a daily ritual, a weekly occurrence, or a monthly treat, we all expect to be part of something new and exciting at some point. But what happens when all the new media stops? Things can't go on as normal, so adjustments must be made, as demand for content won't slow down. For many industries during this time, it was a make or break moment. Yet, despite how we see ourselves as a digital society with infinite content at our fingertips, there are very few mediums which can exist in a purely digital space. Any that could would be right at home in these times. And sure enough, as other industries buckled, trying to devise new strategies, esports took centre stage for many, and acted as an alternative to carry on to its own audience and provide a flow of content to abate parts of the mainstream. This isn't to say it took over the globe and everyone was enjoying it, nor was it a seamless transition. Esports was conceived as a mainly offline practice. The scale has changed over the years, but the core principle has not. Just as sporting events were called off across the globe during the spread of COVID, first in Asia, then later in Europe, and the rest of the world in the following months, so too were their esports equivalents. Chinese specific leagues such as the LPL adjusted in motion with the news, making formatting changes to events, yet some were relocated to safer areas. Global series such as the Overwatch League opted to host their Chinese homestands in South Korea as an alternative. However, in the span of just a few weeks, it became evident that the epidemic in Wuhan could not be easily contained in the modern world. To provide breathing room, several tournaments in Southeast Asia were put on ice until adaptations could be made. Not having an audience was advantageous in not holding mass gatherings, but behind closed doors there's a lot of traffic at these exhibitions, most notably the players, but also TOs, technicians, broadcast crews, production teams, coaches, managers, press. Even in an isolated environment, there's a lot of risk for potential transmission among each and every person that has a hand in making these tournaments happen. To see this all play out in real time, we just have to look back at the Hearthstone Masters Tour, which was set to be held in Indonesia during March 2020. A LAN event with players and fans travelling from across the globe to compete or spectate. Given the rapid spread of COVID through Southeast Asia, tournament organisers took drastic measures in the interest of safety by not only relocating to Los Angeles, but also by making it a studio-only event. Yet, this change in plan still sought to bring in more than 300 competitors from over 40 countries to the same facility, and as Europe was going into mass lockdowns, it would only be a matter of time before America followed suit. When new regulations were announced for California, tournament organisers reformatted the event to entirely online only. Those 300 players would play through each of their qualifying matches, whilst TOs adjudicated elsewhere. From games being played, through remote casting to external broadcast, everything was done remotely. Let's be frank, online-only tournaments are nothing new, and as the severity of the pandemic increased, the go-to alternative for live events became these remote tournaments. They may seem mundane to esports fans, but there aren't very many entertainment industries around the world that can pull off something like this, and it quickly caught the attention of other sectors. looking to provide their fans with their entertainment fix during heightened restrictions. Upon seeing how esports was able to adapt so rapidly, altering regulations, and given the void of content due to lack of events, athletic bodies around the globe began to toy with providing their audiences with virtual equivalents in lieu of actual events. Formula One hosted an online Bahrain Grand Prix featuring decorated drivers matched against sporting personalities and sim racing professionals. They were serving up esports to their audience of non-natives, not set to be a straight replacement, but just something to tide them over, and presenting a unique experience that wasn't just about the stakes, but provided a sense of entertainment they wouldn't typically find out on the track. The Grand Prix was far from an anomaly, as other sporting associations soon got on board. NASCAR, the Premier League, NBA, and several others rallied to provide their fans alternatives in these turbulent times. This wasn't the first time the mainstream media had pushed esports as an alternative. ESPN has regularly broadcast events such as Worlds and the Overwatch League in recent years, yet this time around the critics weren't as abundant, and for much of the audience it was a way for them to enjoy their favourite sports in a lockdown world. There was surprise on both ends. Sporting fans were surprised that these virtual events could be so entertaining and realistic, and the esports world was simply surprised at a wider audience not pushing back and actually enjoying their medium. We even saw a professional Fortnite player in a Super Bowl ad, albeit briefly. But as is the case with 2020, good things rarely last. As fans clamoured for more of the usual, and as the market of potential viewers swelled, pressure would fall on organisers and players. Whilst online tournaments and isolated studio environments provided some sense of normality, they also brought their fair share of issues. Events going forward featuring staunch prize pools had an essence of abnormality that they just hadn't before. With teams playing from around the world and internet infrastructure varying between regions, players were competing through high latency, burdened by disadvantages that they could not help. To stand a chance, some teams had to let go of those experiencing these issues. OG made shockwaves in the Dota scene by signing Trailblazer Sumail in January. Yet due to travel restrictions, they couldn't play together. They were literally continents apart. Despite being one of the best players in the world, the difference in location was dampening all potential, and it proved a discouraging ordeal for everyone involved. Just a few months after the pickup, they parted ways. Maintaining a global esports scene in online-only tournaments, whilst achievable, was a far shot from what players and spectators were used to. It was undeniably frustrating for those involved and the fans watching their idols underperforming. Esports was built on that factor of teams competing on equal footing. Yet when so many external factors play a part, this basic principle is muddled. It became evident isolated studio shoots also came with their slew of issues. A competitive environment could be maintained, but the traffic of those behind the scenes was unavoidable, not to mention restrictions on travel between countries of differing policies. Of the isolated tournaments to go ahead, none came without their issues, be it replacing teams who were unable to attend, or finding stand-ins for rosters affected by such restrictions. Whilst players may have gotten frustrated, there seemed a larger understanding that it was all in the interest of human safety. Players, organisers and teams were taking this seriously, with drastic consequences for anyone who endangered others through their reckless attitudes. Whether that be holding events after receiving counsel not to, or individuals breaking local restrictions. In one instance, Cloud9 cut ties with their players who repeatedly breached protocol. It was an intensive practice to get anything to go ahead, yet a simple matter remained. These events did happen. In a world where huge swathes of the population were isolated and indoors, clamouring for fresh entertainment, esports was able to provide it. Even discounting the earlier mentioned virtual alternatives, 2020 saw a healthy increase to online event viewership compared to the previous year, with the most popular platform, Twitch, boasting record-breaking numbers. As an influx of fresh viewers tuned into events across the globe, there was also an enormous growth in new players and content creators on the platform. People far and wide were finding comfort and entertainment through esports, and in turn sought to play more and create further content. In a time where entertainment industries suffered, this was a method that could be done entirely remotely and completely digitally. There were always new games to play and ongoing titles constantly evolving and updating. The year even saw an entirely new AAA esport be born in the form of Valorant, a game that spent its entire existence in the public eye during the COVID pandemic. From its beta in April, through its fledgling competitive scene ramping up to top tier tournaments held by the likes of ESL, WePlay and Blast, it has developed an avid audience and player base without a single offline event. That isn't to say that esports in the future will turn to online only spaces. They're a reliable alternative, yet the full experience is still integral to the scene. Little by little, the normality returned towards the end of 2020. League of Legends' annual showstopper Worlds still went ahead, with the majority of games happening in a controlled and isolated environment. The finals were played out in a venue at a fraction of its capacity, yet it was a sense of normal that its millions of viewers had been longing for. It's a testament to the adaptability of the scene. Shortly after a period where organisers scrambled to throw together some semblance of an event, we saw a surge in interest for fresh titles and fresh tournaments. It's surprising, but logical, given that the backbone of the industry is built on cutting-edge technology. Whilst much of the working world was getting to grips with Zoom as an alternative to physical meetings, the gaming industry was working near seamlessly, hosting events, creating blockbuster games, and even remote manufacturing next-gen consoles with an intricacy we'd never even seen before. Almost becoming second nature, the abnormal became routine, and some companies saw the benefits of moving away from a concrete working culture. Square Enix Japan offered the option to all of their staff to work remotely indefinitely, even after the world returns to normal. Other tech giants followed suit in these ideals, with Microsoft and Facebook mirroring that they expected the majority of their workforce to be completely remote within the next few years. The industry's resilience and its adaptability aren't a product of the COVID pandemic. They've been fundamentally ingrained within it since its inception. We play titles by developers all around the globe, watch events from areas we've never even visited, and readily party up with players across all corners of the world. The concept of a remote and digital society has been part and parcel of the esports scene for years, and as other sectors sought to rewrite their playbook during these turbulent times, esports hit the ground running. Whilst this was undoubtedly a period of immense turmoil, it gave esports a wider recognition in the public eye. For years, critics have called the wave of popularities for competitive gaming a mere passing fancy. Yet its pivotal part in providing a sense of normality and entertainment in such times is nothing if not a testament to its durability.